guys, Cream Crazy here. Welcome to the first audio rant that I'll be doing, of many I hope. This little rant, of course, if you haven't read the title, is judging on the decline of modern day American wrestling. Now, over the last week, the week from hell, I should say, two of the three major companies have seen ratings declines. TNA has of course hit one of the low points at a 0.85 rating. Raw hit a 2.5 and SmackDown, both of WWE, also hit a 1.74. Now that seems obviously quite bad, knowing how high their ratings did used to be, and that's something that many could say is a decline in standard. Ring of Honor, however, has an even bigger problem. They may have a national TV deal, but the fans are so disgruntled, even the ROH marks, as Dan Parkin calls them, are rejecting the product and going away. That's the company that many people usually would say is the pinnacle of indie wrestling, when in actuality, they're not even doing anything to stay the tide. Now, I will say one thing. The ratings, at face value, do state that professional wrestling is going down the shitter in America. The three major companies are finding it very difficult to compete with everything else. Wrestling is not mainstreamly popular anymore. They can't figure out a way of getting back into public consciousness, no matter how many times they bring back older stars to help. No matter how many times WWE tries to bring in celebrities to make themselves more culturally aware, it just makes them look very, very poor. And that's something that many people really find annoying. And in all fairness, what is down to? What has caused the American wrestling decline? Is it because many of the big names left and went to do other things, meaning WWE wasn't the main focus? Or did TNA lose sight of their creative process? Did Ring of Honor lose touch with their roots and try and become too much of a WWE TNA clone? There's a lot of tangible things we can really put together for this, and it's very, very difficult to really iron out everything. But I want to quickly point out one thing. Many people are stating that Raw's rating decline is because of the change from 2 hours to 3 hours. Now, there is no doubt in this world that this is happening, because me, a person who can sit through a 3-hour pay-per-view with absolutely no problem, finds it difficult to sit through a 3-hour Raw. Now, last week, this past evening, was a completely different two things. Last week, I found it really difficult to get through the 3 hours. It was almost impossible. However, this week had excitement. It had Mr. McMahon coming to the rescue and basically showing us why he deserves to be the chairman by doing on air what everybody believes he should do, being the intense, emotional mic worker who is one of the best in the business. Because if anyone can instigate excitement with intensity, it's Vince McMahon. And I often think 3 hours is what caused WCW to die. Eric Bischoff said it was his one regret about WCW was turning it to 3 hours. Now, Vince obviously has the added advantage. He can decide whether to turn it back to 2. And in all fairness, we'd all welcome it. However, WWE has had a major issue with this. They've had a major issue with ratings declines over the past. There are two situations where this has happened. First was the famous Black Saturday event, which in 1984, before Hulkamania and WrestleMania came to be, WWF took over Georgia Championship Wrestling's primetime TV slot on a Saturday. Now, one episode later, it was a ratings disaster, money was lost, and basically WWF nearly went bankrupt. They effectively asked favours for the NWA to promote their shows, get them out there, and basically put them back on the footing. And you see, that was a bad thing. That nearly caused the downfall of the company right when it was about to do something which, in terms of wrestling in an archival sense, is great. However, you look further on, after the golden era, the rock and roll wrestling connection, you see that they went through it again. The steroid trials, the everything else, including shit writing, ridiculous gimmicks, and unbelievable crap. You then get to the fact that they had low buy rates and low ratings in 1995 to 1997, which effectively nearly let them down the tubes as well, while WCW was whipping them. And it seems that after every single high, there does come a low, and at the moment, WWE is going through it. And people really shouldn't say, oh, I'm going to turn my back, because, again, I keep saying it, like Hulk Hogan and the John Cena comparisons, it's all just part of the puzzle. It's not actually, something new. This is just something that keeps happening, and it's something that happens with the industry. You have a high, and then a low, and then a high, and then a low. It just keeps doing it. Now, WWE, many people have said it's the writing staff that are to blame with the shit product. In fact, Vince McMahon fired the head of Raw creative team, which I think is now Brian Gewitz, who I literally said was Brian Gerwitz in form of a vocal typo. Now, apparently WWE stars have been complaining to Vince that the writing has been getting worse, and therefore they need to be changed. And they were saying that WWE is going to go down the tubes because Vince and the creative team have no touch on what WWE should be and any consideration with that whatsoever. And change has now happened. That's one situation where they can make things better. How can WWE also make things better? Put more intensity into their promos like last night? That would be worth it. There are a few other things as well. I wouldn't be able to name them because WWE has a much larger case file. You'd find it easier to nitpick it in your own time or nitpick it in the comments section below. The fact is, TNA has one major fault. And the fact is, it's not just because it's Hulk Hogan being in charge of the company creatively. It's not just because of Dixie Carter being a little bit clueless as to how to run a wrestling organisation. It's more the fact that they are relying on too many recycled ideas. They're not really creating anything new. Aces and Eights is basically just a renegade faction coming in and beating the shit out of things. Most of their factions in the last 3 or 4 years, Fortune, Immortal, have all done the same. Even the Main Event Mafia had a small element of that to it. It's the fact that they also rely on too many older stars to try and generate star power. They're doing what WWE do on a mostly regular basis at the moment. They've been doing that since 2006. So that's the one thing I think, that they've just got to try and stop being what they think they can be in a WWE situation. They have to be their own situation. They have to be their own company, their own creative ideas, their own stars. But they obviously aren't doing it. They obviously aren't doing it because their company's being run by idiots. That's why. You look at Ring of Honor. Jim Cornette is now no longer head of creative. That's a good and a bad thing at the same time. But you then look at how they've been doing things. iPay-per-views have been falling by the wayside. A technology which is not fully rendered and fully able to be proven to be good enough to put pay-per-views on and not have them break up well enough. They haven't received the backing that the Sinclair Broadcasting Company could give them. They have been trying to put too much sports entertainment in when the in-ring action was enough. They had very little feud dynamics. It was all based around the matches and a couple of little personal things just to make the matches even more intense and fuel psychology. That's what it was about. But of course now, it's not even that. They are trying to become WWE. They're trying to become a sports entertainment wrestling company. And many people are saying that it's because they're trying too hard to do this that they're never going to make it. And it's true. Because they used to be different. You used to say, okay, WWE, TNA, they're the wrestling companies who dabble into sports entertainment. Ring of Honor is mostly pure professional wrestling at its heart without having to go to Japan or go to Dragon Gate USA or Chikara or any of the others that are around there who do a much better job than Ring of Honor. They have been trying too hard to become something they're not, and until they realise that that's an issue, things will not change. Fans will find themselves looking at their very linear roster, looking at how shit their creative process is and say, there's a massive issue here. And they will make it happen. They will do anything to change their fortunes. Any of these companies will do anything to change their fortunes, and that's a major, major thing. It's all doable. These companies can make the differences to make their products better. They can stop the decline, because it can be done. Every time a decline in wrestling happens, there is always a resurgence. It's part of the parcel that is wrestling life as we know it. And I don't want to be, the idiot who points out shit like this, because I know the guys in the back are probably mulling over it right now. But it's simple. Follow the things I've said, and that mainstream decline will probably go away. We might see a rise in this. And you know what? That's the important thing. We want to see something better than what we're getting. And I'm obviously not one to complain. I mean, I'm saying to people, look, it's not everything I want, but if I'm enjoying parts of it, I can still enjoy the show as a whole, even with negatives around it. That's how I do things. I'm not really negative and saying I'm never going to watch again because it's shit. Because, honestly, in my opinion, wrestling's been a bigger part of my life than most things. I effectively don't want to lose it. And that's how it is for me. For other people, it's different. But this is the thing. The decline is natural. It happens, it happens, it happens. It'll come back to normal eventually. And I have to say this all the time because people just won't understand that fact. Vince McMahon has fired one guy in the back in the writing staff. There will be more changes. Things might improve. And I stress the might, because it could. TNA, I don't follow enough, neither do I Ring of Honor. I often hear this about these stuff from other people. I see TNA on Challenge TV every now and again, just to see how they're going. I don't watch them all the time, but I do just chime in to see how their creative's doing, how their feuds are doing. And at the moment, TNA are doing what WWE aren't doing, putting a coherent product out. They're at least putting on great matches and great feuds, but it's everything else that it's mired in is what's causing it problems. Along with the fact that if you're on Spike TV, you're not going to get too much of a deal unless you're big enough. That's the thing. Spike TV only really give a shit if you're big enough. UFC were big enough. They made it. So, honestly, the mainstream decline in wrestling today is something we can all debate. We can all have a go at. But in all fairness, we should not fret, because it will sort itself out eventually. We just need, as fans, to be wholly patient. And if we're not patient, it'll come back and bite us in the ass, because it always will. It always, always will. And guys, that's the end of my little rant here. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hope these audio rants are something new for the future. You know what you can do out there. You can click the subscribe button if you want to see more. I'll be doing more of these in the week if more issues come up, because these are very easy to record. And comment down there in the comment section on anything I've said. What do you want to... Do you think WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor can get out of this rut that wrestling's in right now, generally on the mainstream front? Can they do it? Do you think they will? In any form. Anyway, you can also just... Well, I don't... Actually, no, I was going to do my usual stick of mentioning all the things you can do, but my credit sequence will do that now. I've got to remember that, otherwise I will really make these audio things run into the ground. Anyway, I've been Cream Crazy, you've been People Listening. This has been a discussion on the decline of mainstream American wrestling, and I will see you next time. Well, you'll be hearing me next time. Never mind, it's just all part of the stick. Anyway, see ya.